Then they make some snarky comment about people in bigger bodies.
Oh, yeah.
And
No, you
anyways,
are fiery about that. You are.
yeah,
And it's
it bothers
good.
me.
It's good.
It's not okay. Yeah.
Welcome to the Complete Nutrition Podcast.
The podcast where we break free from the dieting cycle and explore sustainable, realistic ways to improve your health.
I'm Kylie, a registered dietitian with over 10 years of experience.
And I'm Spencer, and I've been eating food my entire life. And I happen to be a nurse.
Each week, we dive into the science, psychology, and strategies behind mindful eating and sustainable change.
Whether you're here to transform your relationship with food, learn how to make lasting lifestyle changes, or are simply curious about what true health looks like, you're in the right place.
We'd invite you to subscribe and tag along if you'd like to stop dieting and start living.
This episode is brought to you by the vitamin E. And this vitamin was first discovered in the 1920s by two scientists named Herbert Evans and Catherine Bishop, which shout out to women in science, especially in the 20s.
Yeah, true. In the 20s.
Yeah.
That's very true.
So they were studying something that they called substance X that was found in, well, they were studying rats. And when they took out certain food groups, they found that it caused infertility in rats. And they were trying to figure out what that substance X was. And through their research that they discovered it was, the compound is called tocopherol, and it's one of the compounds of vitamin E. So most vitamins come in different compounds. Like the best example I can use, a lot of people take magnesium. There's magnesium citrate, magnesium oxide, magnesium glycinate. Same thing with iron. There's iron sulfate, iron gluconate. So same thing with vitamin E. So there's different compounds. So the thing that they found was called tocopherol, and it's Greek for toco means childbirth and phero means to bear. And they found that this compound, or vitamin E, was found in leafy greens. And when they added that back into the rat's diet, that it cured their infertility. And
rat babies.
yeah. So vitamin E, it is a fat soluble vitamin, meaning that we need fat to be able to absorb it. And it is an antioxidant. And it also can cause infertility in humans. So it can impact in males sperm quality, and then also impact ovulation in females.
If we don't have enough of it.
If we don't have enough. Mm-hmm.
Also, fat soluble, meaning that we need to eat fats with it. Like fats need to be in our stomach to help absorb it, right? To
absorb it, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just clarifying because you said we need to have fat. And I just want to make sure that we didn't think like,
oh yeah,
that if we have fat in our body,
dietary fat,
it'll absorb, but dietary fat.
Which you also need.
Maybe that's obvious for everybody else. But.
Yeah. I mean, you also need fat to store it because it's stored in our fat. But I think that's like a good emphasis. So it's vitamin E is found in leafy greens. And so people often will talk about how they don't put salad dressing on their salad, but we need that salad dressing that contains fat to absorb the vitamin E. So it's in leafy greens, it's in nuts and oils and whole grains and fish. So basically like a very Mediterranean type diet. So get your vitamin E if you're trying to have kids, even if you're not, it's still helpful.
Mm-hmm. Vitamin E is good. Do they just name the vitamins in alphabetical order? That's probably a dumb question.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. That would be interesting to map out the history of this discoveries of vitamins.
I'm imagining so.
Yeah.
The 20s were the flappers, right?
Uh-huh.
These 20s flapper women.
Yeah.
Maybe one of them was just named Elphaba.
Wait,
okay.
What? I don't get it.
Because it's vitamin E, so Elphaba. Doesn't that start with an E?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. She's named after herself. Vitamin E for Elphaba.
Oh, like a flapper girl that discovered it?
Because it was in the 20s. Never mind.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't
Sorry. Off topic.
Okay.
So yeah, today, Kylie, what are we talking about? Besides vitamin E?
We are talking about weight bias. And well, specifically, so when I was doing my master's, I did a research paper, a peer-reviewed research paper. So it was published in a journal article of, oh gosh, I don't even know what it's called.
And she had it tore apart by
which it did.
Several people.
Definitely. So for those of you who don't know, we talk about peer-reviewed scientific journal articles. And I knew of them. That was my first personal experience of being peer-reviewed. And you submit it, and then it goes through several rounds where your peers, so I mean, they weren't really my peers. I was a master's student, and they were fellow PhD professors, and they literally tore apart my paper.
Yeah, it sounded really traumatic.
And it went through 3 different reviews, or maybe it was 2 or 3. And, but at the end of the whole process, I mean, it took probably about like 8 months. My paper was so much better, and they brought in some really good perspectives and really good arguments that they asked me to include in my paper. And it just really emphasized to me the importance of finding papers that have been peer reviewed, because they have been looked over and they look at bias, and that was something that they helped me, is to look at all of the studies. Like, you're just looking at these couple of studies, but what about these? And anyways, it was really hard, and it took my blood, sweat, and tears, literal tears. I definitely cried.
It was a rough
hard.
But you did
anyways, but I did it, and we're going to summarize the research here so you don't have to read it.
You can also go read it if you really want to. Also, before we begin this episode, I just want to say that we can't speak for those that are in bigger bodies. So just take what we say with a grain of salt. Kylie has a lot of experience with all of this, of course, but we don't and can't know what it's like. So we just want to say that before we start. We have, I guess you would call it, thin privilege. So we have inherent bias ourselves. So anyway, just wanted to say that we can't speak for the large-bodied folks. Anyway. So first question, what is weight bias? Define that for us.
So weight bias, with any bias, it can be implicit or explicit. And implicit is it's subconscious, so we don't really realize it, and it just automatically happens. And an explicit is it's obvious, and we consciously know that we have negative thoughts and feelings, and we can consciously acknowledge those. So implicit is obviously a lot harder to acknowledge. And bias is basically a negative association or a negative stereotype. And specifically for weight bias, it's towards people with bigger bodies is what we're focusing on today. And so we might feel like people in bigger bodies, or we might, if we're in a bigger body, we might feel this towards ourselves too, that people are less attractive, they're lazy, they're unsuccessful, they're no good because they are in a bigger body. And so just seeing someone without really knowing who they are, knowing, their characteristics and anything else about them, is automatically assuming that they are less than because of the body they reside in. And it can be perceived, so you can feel it yourself, you can also project it. And so weight, and it can also
make others feel it, you mean, when you say you project it?
Yeah. So we'll talk about projecting. People who project weight bias are people who treat others in a belittling way because of the bias they have. And so you can perceive it. One can perceive and feel like, well, this person's treating me with bias, and feel like they're being discriminated against. But it can also be self-projected, where people will say things themselves that...
I hear that all the time, and I never know how to respond.
I don't engage because and I think it's like almost like a defense. Can I understand like when I work with people who come to me and like know they're in bigger bodies and they make so many jokes and like make
discriminating
comments
about themselves.
And I don't engage. I don't like when they're making a joke, I don't laugh. Or if they say something really negative, I will catch them in that and try and correct their thinking. And
is that like appropriate to do in like casual conversation though? Because like they're in like a dietary setting, like where you're like there to teach them.
Right.
I don't know. I guess
I think it depends on the situation and how comfortable you feel.
Yeah.
I think it's harder when it's like self-projected. I think I probably feel a little bit more fiery when it's someone that's projecting and like saying mean things towards that are inappropriate.
Yeah.
Or not even towards another, just like in general.
Oh, even if it's themselves.
If it's just in a group and then they make some snarky comment about people in bigger bodies.
Oh, yeah.
And anyways.
No, you are fiery about that. You are.
Yeah,
and it's
it bothers
good.
me.
It's good.
It's not okay. Yeah. Anyway, so this weight bias and we see it in media, right? So how often do you see like a star girl in a movie who is in a bigger body? Like they're all thin.
I feel like they're always casted for whatever reason as like the funny person or like the comedic relief.
Right. People, the friend, it's like the fat friend sidekick, right? Yeah. And you also see it. We're going to talk about healthcare today, but I also see it. I also see bias in, like clothing stores, like their advertisements are starting to get better where they represent all body sizes. Yeah, it's getting better. But actual clothing sizes in stores, so many of my clients have to order online because their sizes aren't found in stores, which I think is really stupid. If you look at the, like the BMI, the vast majority of Americans have higher BMIs. And so it just doesn't like that is definitely a bias and a discrimination that there's not supposed available. To be that. Their sizes aren't available and like not having clothes that fit their bodies.
Sizist for real though.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's seen all over. I mean, even in like, if you go to a doctor's office and there's not a chair for someone that they can fit in, or if you go to a roller coaster ride and there's not appropriate equipment that can fit all sizes on an airplane, if they don't have seatbelt extenders, or if they make a person buy 2 seats instead of accommodating for their bigger body.
That is rough.
Yeah.
How prevalent is it? Are there like any stats out there that you know that show the prevalence of weight bias?
Yeah. So this comes from my research. And so it's more commonly felt in women than men. So women are 2 times more likely to perceive weight bias. And then in these studies that they took surveys of people who, and they looked at their BMI. So people with higher BMI, so people in larger bodies, they had a higher prevalence of perceiving weight bias. And then there's lots of different studies and we'll talk through some of those, but it is pretty surprising, not even surprisingly, I guess shockingly prevalent. There's a lot of studies on medical students. I think medical students are like easy participants for studies, but there was shocking numbers of percentages of medical students that openly agreed to very explicit bias that people in bigger bodies were associated with like more negative stereotypes.
Oof. That is... Oh, that's sad. I just like think about all the times. I was just thinking about all the times that I've seen it myself or that I felt it myself. Yeah, I don't know. It's ingrained in our society for sure.
Yeah.
So why is it important for us as healthcare practitioners or for those that are just in healthcare? Why is it important in healthcare?
Yeah, I think there's a cartoon. It's like not I mean, maybe some people think it's funny, but it portrays very well what the issue is. And so it's a picture, or the cartoon goes through a story of a patient coming to a doctor's office, and the patient's in a bigger body, and the patient's arm also has happened to have fallen off. And so the patient is like holding their arm and comes into the doctor and says, "Doctor, my arm fell off. What should I do?" And then the doctor proceeds to start saying, "Well, if you were to lose some weight and stop eating fast food and start eating more fruits and vegetables, this would really help you." And then the patient says, "Well, doctor, what does that have to do with my arm falling off?" And then it changes scenes to the doctor charting a note and charting and saying that the patient was non-compliant and wasn't listening to recommendations. And I think it demonstrates very well why that matters in healthcare.
They hyper focus on the weight to the expense of anything else.
Yeah. And it changes the way that providers interact with patients and provides care with the patients. And then that has like a domino effect on the patient. And then the patient feels stressed, or the patient's going to avoid the doctor. I have so many people who miss out on preventative healthcare screening because they don't want to go to the doctor because they know that the doctor is just going to tell them to lose weight. And
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. And it's not okay. And it's really ironic because the doctors have been trained and educated that this is the right way to help with whatever all of these issues, but really, and we'll talk through what it is actually doing and why it's harmful. And it should not be how we address anything in healthcare, that we treat the patient and their problems as opposed to assuming that they're like the Band-Aid solution is to lose weight. So, I mean, in some of these studies that they've shown that providers for people with bigger BMIs, that they spend less time with the patient. It's less patient-centered care. So they don't really listen and they don't really treat what the patient is coming in for. And then they over-attribute complications to excess weight. And there's a couple of stories that I wanted to share. One story is a woman who was having issues with shortness of breath to the point where she was getting worried and had come to the doctor several times, and they kept telling her to lose weight. Lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. And then over the next several years, eventually she started coughing and started coughing up blood, and she went to the emergency room and they finally did x-rays and they found that she had a tumor, and she had I can't remember if it was a partial removal of her lung or had to remove one of her lungs because of this lung tumor, which could have been resolved and prevented had they had done all the precautionary things for someone with similar treatment and looked and actually taken care of her. And that's that's just like one story of so many. Another story I wanted to share, this was a quote from a woman named Ellen Maud Bennett. And in her obituary, she felt it important enough to say this. She said that her dying wish was that women of size make her death matter by advocating strongly for their health and not accepting that fat is the only relevant health issue. And she continues, or her family, I guess, is writing the obituary. They continue, over the past few years of feeling unwell, she sought out medical interventions and no one offered any support or suggestions beyond weight loss. And I mean, that was such a pertinent and important issue to her that they put it in her obituary as this plea for change.
That's very sad.
Yeah.
That really is sad.
I mean, again, it just reemphasizes that, we're missing the mark, and that physicians are actually causing more harm when they're focusing on weight loss.
Weight.
As opposed to, focusing on what the patient comes in for. I think most people who are in bigger bodies are wanting to lose weight. And it's not something that they need to be told. And then on the flip side, so we have how it impacts the provider, but for patients, they're not getting the right care. They're going to avoid doctors, avoid preventative care, but it also increases anxiety, stress, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Because of this perceived weight bias, it adds to this emotional burden for them.
Which probably just makes it harder for them to have any sort of desire to be healthy in any way at all.
Yeah.
Oof. So I have another question. Were there other things in the studies you looked at that people who experienced weight bias were more at risk for?
Yeah. So beyond just feeling like this extra burden of anxiety and stress, they also found correlations that for people who had perceived weight bias, they had a higher risk for not exercising, a higher risk for emotional eating, a higher risk for weight gain. And again, I think that just emphasizes is that physicians, they feel like they're trying to like help, but it's actually making the problem worse, and they are not. Like it's doing the opposite effect of what they're trying to do. In trying to address weight, it's actually pushing people to engage in unhealthy lifestyle behaviors.
Have you seen a lot of this with your own practice?
Oh, for sure.
Like doctors that send people in and you hear all these stories.
Yes. Like let me tell you some of these craziest things. I work at a hospital, and we have a mother baby unit, and I have had one particular doctor that will order nutrition consults for weight management after the mom has just had her baby.
Holy.
And I will go in and like chat with the mom and like ask if her appetite's good and like how she's doing. And then in my notes, just say like patient is not appropriate for nutrition education at this time.
Because they just had a baby.
They just had a baby.
Yeah, of course they're going to have
like,
extra weight.
I don't know. I feel like every single mom out there is like, wants to do that and feels pressure to do that. And it's like it's not something that needs to be brought up.
That's also a really vulnerable time to be told that you're fat. That you just had a baby. Of course, like you gained some weight.
Yeah.
You're fueling a baby, and the doctor comes and tells you you should lose some weight.
Makes me so
that's pretty bad.
Mad. And yeah, like that's a perfect example of like weight bias. Like, okay, okay, this mom, I don't know, it's just stupid. So I've seen that. I actually had one that I had worked with my hospital's compliance team and like got the doctor
in trouble.
I don't know about in trouble, but
that's what the compliance
had
team is
compliance
for, right?
team look into
You got in trouble.
that this patient was in a larger body and was having diarrhea issues and wasn't eating anything and was losing gobs and gobs of weight, like so much weight so quickly, and it wasn't
like an
healthy.
unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And the doctor said, what did he say?
And
or she?
It was a he. It was a
bias.
he. And he kept having this diarrhea. And I was like, this is not normal. And the doctor was like, well, he's losing weight. I'm like, whoa. Like, this isn't healthy weight loss. This isn't like, this isn't good.
And he was just fine with that? Like, no matter what was happening?
Yeah. And he just said if he would just eat better, like his diarrhea will go away. And the patient was just struggling eating anything at all. Anyways, he eventually got diagnosed with exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. And so his pancreas wasn't making enzymes. So he was having diarrhea.
Yeah.
So that was something that was missed that
the doctor just assumed because he was fat that he should have.
And I had to push for, and luckily we found some good providers that would do testing. That was another one. There's so many. This is probably the last one. I have another gal who had been losing a ton of weight, and she was really worried about it, and everyone kept telling her like, oh, congratulations, it's like really awesome that you're losing weight, blah blah blah. But she was like, no, like I don't feel good, I'm not eating, like this isn't good. and no one was taking her seriously. Like, doesn't matter what size you are, you still need to eat food, and too fast of weight loss is too fast of weight loss.
It's gonna stress out your heart,
and you can be
and
malnourished and still have like a BMI classified as obese.
Stress out your brain and stress out. Yeah, yikes. Dang.
Anyways, like
weight bias.
A few stories of many, but yes.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously weight bias is bad. But what about, I mean, there's obviously studies that suggest that weight loss is still a good thing, like that there is good weight loss. Like, what do those studies say, like, about improving heart health and diabetes and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
What do they say about that?
So, and this was something that in my peer reviews, because I was arguing that, like I was in my paper, they had felt like I was taking too strong of this side that like we need to like promote lifestyle behaviors and like never talk about weight loss. But they were like, you can't ignore all of the research that talks about, like how weight loss can help improve blood sugars and how weight loss can help improve cholesterol. And so I do talk about those studies. And there are studies out there that suggest that weight loss does help improve some of those health parameters. However, there were two studies in particular that they looked at that, they looked at weight bias as a variable, which studies usually don't look at weight bias as a variable as impacting cholesterol or impacting A1C. So we looked at weight and looked at some of these other things and saw, oh, when you lost weight, like your A1C goes down and your blood cholesterol goes down. But these two particular studies, they looked at people with weight bias, perceived weight bias. And one was looking at A1C or blood sugar, and the other one was looking at inflammatory markers for heart disease. And for the heart health, for the inflammatory markers, they found that patients who had perceived weight bias had a 207% increase in the biomarkers. So they call it your allostatic load. Like you have a bunch of inflammatory markers that can, if you have like a poor diet and you're sedentary and you're super stressed, it can increase your allostatic load. So people with perceived weight bias, and they adjusted for BMI. So that they took into account people's BMI when they were doing all the data. And people with perceived weight bias had a 207% increase in that allostatic load. And so what this study is basically suggesting, that people who have perceived weight bias, this perceived weight bias is causing so much stress that it's also impacting their health. And that's something that we haven't looked at in studies. Mm-hmm. So is it really their weight that's impacting their health, or is it because of the weight bias and the pressure that they feel? And then the other study for A1C.
Sounds like a study to be had, Kylie.
Well, I think it's still something to be a variable that needs to be included in more studies. So another study looked at A1Cs, and they found that the people who had the highest A1Cs were the ones that had like perceived weight bias. So raises blood sugars and potentially increases our stress markers on our heart. Maybe like that's what we're still trying to figure out, is how much of it is actually weight or the stress of weight bias. Yeah.
Dang. That is a hard thing to quantify. Sounds like a hard thing to quantify. All right, Kylie. So final question. What can we do to reduce weight bias so that we don't stress people out and increase their allostatic load?
So I think checking in with your own weight bias and just trying to be more aware, right? And I do think they talk about like viewing examples of people who are successful and people who like are beautiful and attractive, like people like models who are in bigger bodies, and like seeking out individuals who are bigger bodied that defy the negative stereotypes.
Not that you have to be a model to defy the negative stereotype.
Correct. But I think finding people who are the opposite of what I think the negative stereotype is suggesting. And I think for my own clients who are in bigger bodies, that helps them to like build the confidence that to not let the pressure of society bear down on them, and that they can be sexy, they can be successful, they are beautiful, and they are hardworking, and to push past what some of these negative things that society and culture might suggest. I would also say to not engage in conversation or discussion that promotes fat phobia. If you do engage, is to use it to educate or to like put people into their place and to tell people like you shouldn't be saying those things or not making those jokes. Like those things are not helpful and cause eating disorders and promote this public shame and fat phobia. And so I think checking in with your own weight bias, and then if you have perceived weight bias, like you feel, a lot of my work is with people in bigger bodies who feel like everyone else in a bigger body can be beautiful and be successful, but then for whatever reason they can't be, and that they are ugly and unworthy and everything else. And so I think checking in with like your own self weight bias, checking in with a counselor or a dietitian to start changing your belief about yourself, and find physicians and a care team that focuses on weight neutral care, that doesn't talk about or bring up your weight
As the problem, as the root of everything.
Yeah. And I mean, unless you want to, right? It needs to be asked permission, but that a provider that focuses on you and what questions and what the problem that you actually come in for. And so I think checking in with yourself and just not talking about weight. Like, how often do we talk about weight? Or I feel like too often, I don't know if you notice this, but I feel like in like family get-togethers or like, maybe not so much with my colleagues that are dietitians, but like other colleagues, like when I go into the nurse's station and they have like donuts, and I eat a donut, and then people are like, oh, like, I wondered what you would do. Like, don't say those things. Like, don't talk about people's food. Don't talk about people's weight. Don't even bring it up. And it shouldn't be part of the conversation. So just keep weight out of the conversation and focus on people and who they are, and that we are more than our bodies. And I hope that this reaches healthcare providers. If you are a healthcare provider who has been educated to talk to people about their weight and to tell people to lose weight, that you have it all wrong. And that really we don't need to be telling people about losing weight, but like asking questions about lifestyle for everyone, regardless of their size. Are you active? Are you drinking water? Are you getting in lots of whole foods? And treating a person regardless of their size for what they came in for. And yeah, again, emphasis on that we are more than just our bodies.
Indeed, we are. We are. Thank you, Kylie. It just makes me think about all the intrinsic weight bias that I have noticed myself having and that I need to be better at, especially because I'm in a healthcare setting. I don't know. I was noticing it with my own coworker the other day. She kept making self-deprecating comments about her weight, and it was really hard. And I just wanted to know how to respond to that in a way that like wouldn't make her think that either that I agreed with it or that I thought that about her. Anyway.
Yeah. And I think too, if like, sometimes I think people feel better about themselves in saying self-deprecating things. I think it's also important for people to know that if you are one to say that, it also like if you are saying that, somebody else is thinking, oh, if they think that about themselves, what does that say about me?
That's true. That's so true.
I
I'm going
hear
to
that
say that to her next time.
all the time. Yeah. And I
Maybe.
just think that, I mean, it just totally depends on the person and like I think how comfortable you are with them and how close you are. But I think either not engaging or or telling them otherwise.
Tricky subject. It can be a sensitive subject, obviously.
For sure.
Tread with care. Anyway, thank you, Kylie. Hopefully we can all learn to reduce weight bias.
If you are listening, we imagine that you are probably on your own health journey. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of this journey. We want to invite you to consider these 3 questions as a weekly personal check-in.
The first question is that maintaining a positive mindset is crucial for success. So, what are your victories and your wins from the past week?
Second question, what are your intentions or focus or goals for this next week? Reminder that the simpler and more realistic, the better.
And the last question is, what are you going to do to accomplish this goal? Be specific, and we invite you to write this down somewhere. What specific things will you do to reach this goal of yours?
Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you are listening to, we would invite you to subscribe. We'd also invite you to leave a review. If you do, you will be entered into our monthly drawing to win a box of meal deliveries. Take a screenshot of your review and send it to Complete Nutrition, complete with a K, completenutrition@gmail.com. You can also check us out online at www.complete-nutrition.com or on Instagram at complete_nutrition.